The one universal constraint that exists for everyone is time. And that means there is no way you can maximize your potential if you don't learn how to manage it. And if you don't believe me, ask CEOs why they spend over $100,000 yearly on assistants. Ask why they spend tens of thousands of dollars monthly on productivity tools and systems. Well, it's because they've learned that very fact. You see, management of your time isn't increasing the number of hours more than 24, but it is to ensure that each hour is spent intentionally. It's to ensure that your focus is on the areas that will actually move the needle. It's to ensure that you can be present in the most precious moments in life. It allows you to be present in your relationships when you want to also have time off and relax. You can do that intentionally, but you can also be deeply focused in your work when you need to as well. If you were to ask me what is that one skill that is differentiating you from the life that you're currently living and the life that you want to live, I would say one of the most important ones would be time management, but that should be exciting. It shouldn't be daunting because probably your time management skills as of now has been inadequate. It has costed you a lot. But on the bright side, a time management skill set is built off of not a high IQ. It's not built off of having a lot of money or resources. It simply requires effort and a system. The system I will teach you the effort you need to bring. My name is Jun Yu. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I just mentioned that a lack of time management will cost you a lot, and I don't mean just a missed deadline, and we know how important those are in the academic sphere, but moreover, I am referring to the fact that our brains have a limited capacity in our working memory to manipulate information in real time. That means when you're sitting there thinking to yourself, oh, what was that one appointment? Oh, what was that one thing that I need to do? Oh, what was that one homework assignment that I need to complete? Oh, what was that one exam that I had to study for? Oh, what was that one weakness that I really wanted to focus on? When you are thinking those things, you are losing out on something else. And that something else is probably the deep focus that you need to actually complete your work. We need to have you manage your time effectively. So yes, you don't miss any deadlines, but you ensure that your working memory is associated with work that actually matters and not thinking about other types of information at that time. So I'm very excited to be able to share with you the exact system that's allowed me to graduate at the top cohort of my class in arguably one of the hardest majors out there in biomedical engineering with a neuroengineering concentration, and got both my bachelor's and master's simultaneously in it. What's allowed me to make over $1 million with my business before I graduated, allowed me to pay off my student loans before I graduated, allowed me to pay off my entire family's debt, allowed me to be present in my relationships and also continue expanding my network in my professional and personal life, while also allowing me to prioritize my mental, my physical, and spiritual health as well. So we will be discussing 4 important steps to this system: plan, prioritize, execute, and review. Let's discuss number 1, planning. Parkinson's law states that work tends to expand to fill up the time allotted for it. So if you're not planning with deadlines in mind, it's very much the case that you will likely procrastinate. And we've all experienced this before. And that's why we tend to cram, and we know that cramming is not going to provide us the learning outcomes that we want. And when I say learning outcomes, I'm not speaking of just the grade associated with it. You probably are missing out on your best grades because of this cramming approach. But moreover, we know that knowledge tends to build upon itself, especially as you get into higher education. So that will not fly when you start to progress. And those learning outcomes are depth of comprehension along with retention. And so this cramming along with procrastination will surely prevent you from excelling at the highest level. So here, immediately what you can do is start to scope what you actually need to do. So what are the classes currently involved with your semester or term? What are the extracurriculars that you're involved in? What are some of the other responsibilities outside of school that you also want to ensure you do? And which hobbies do you find the most joy in? Who do you really love spending time with? Now, once you've completed this really quick writing exercise and you've created a list of it, I want you to now plan your ideal week. Simply start with the things that actually you want to do, that you're naturally engaged with. So, of course, prioritize prioritize your sleep, ensure that you have time to rest, and also ensure that you have time to play. So schedule those times to hang out with your friends, hang out with your pets, or to go ahead and do a hobby. Ensure that you allot those times for it, and then start to input your class times, your homework assignments, your projects, and the things that you need to complete that's associated with school, along with the other responsibilities that you want to complete as well. But do it in a manner in which, in a situation where there is no disruptions, there is no change to your schedule, there is no spontaneity in the sense where something's going to be thrown onto you last minute, what would you like your week to look like? Secondly, I want you to consider the medium in which you will be planning. Whether it's on a physical journal or an online calendar or even a second brain, it's really important that we identify which medium works best for us, which will be the most practical, so that we can ensure that we stick to it. My specific recommendation would be that if you are new to the time management realm, to simply start out with a physical journal or a online calendar like Google Calendar. Those work perfectly fine. These are going to be really easy to start with and will have high utility. If you really want to take your productivity and time management skills to the next level, I mean, it's become extremely popular for good reason. It's the second brain. I've discussed this a lot in previous videos, and there's a ton of resources out there that discuss this heavily. I would recommend the platform Notion, and this is what we utilize in our mentorship program. We provide all of our students highly detailed and customizable templates developed by extremely talented professionals that they get as part of the program. And so that is what I would encourage, depending on the stage that you're at. Once you've scoped your responsibilities and identified a medium in which you plan, you're ready to move on to step 2. Step 2, prioritize. And I really believe that this step is where we start to differentiate ourselves from everyone else, because most people are really good at making a laundry list of to-dos, and very few people take that additional step of actually prioritizing. What do I mean by that? Defining what will actually move the needle. There is a lot of distraction and a lot of busy work that we put onto ourselves that we deem to be important in the moment, when in reality it doesn't actually align with the future that we have set out for ourselves, the future that we actually want, right? So in that case, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing a certain task? And when you can take the list of tasks that you have and then really scope down and understanding that in the midst of that, you're going to have to create healthy boundaries for yourself. And boundaries, when you say no to somebody, isn't you being rude. A no is a deeper yes to the things that you actually want. So it's really important that we do that. And then when we can start to continuously tailor our responsibilities until we find our core set of responsibilities that are important to us and that will allow us to have progress and that also bring us joy. So a specific example of this in the context of academics is the use of a retrospective timetable. And I've spoken about this a lot before, and there's really good reason for it. There's something called a prospective revision timetable, which most of us are familiar with, and that simply means that you are planning ahead of time. And that has its place, and I actually think that doing both a prospective and a retrospective one is really, really beneficial. But the idea of a retrospective one is to go throughout your term having a strong awareness of where your strengths and your weaknesses reside. You know, in part of the learning system, that's something that I always talk about. And as you can focus on your areas of weakness and ensuring that they're up to par, that is a better use of your time than doing busy work with practice sets that are associated with your strengths. A lot of times we have a failure of awareness of what is actually strong and what is actually weak in our skill set or in our knowledge repository, that we spend a lot of time in areas that don't have high utility. You want good return on your time investment. That's why you should be focused on your weaknesses. But that in and of itself right there is a demonstration of us putting our efforts in areas that actually matter. So having a high sense of awareness will ensure that you can prioritize your responsibilities. But this applies in every realm of our lives. So many times when I was younger, I thought it was so important for me to be involved in everything, right? And so I would play sports. I would go out all the time because I cared about being popular and I wanted to be well liked. I cared so much about being a part of every single club that there was. I was so involved with everything in my church. I was so involved with every little domain of my life. And I thought that that was the right thing to do. When in reality, I've learned that it's really hard to make progress when you spread yourself out so thin. So what are the actual areas that will move the needle in your life? What are the actual areas that are important to you? And for me, to continuously participate as a leader in my youth group at church was really, really important. The clubs at my school, not so much. The parties at my school, not so much. In those spheres, I was actually surrounded by a lot of people that didn't even care about me in the first place, and that certainly wasn't aligned with who I was. So I took time away from that and continuously built up my leadership skills in my youth group. And that's one example of you taking your time in one allocated spot currently, having a better awareness of the need to prioritize, putting your effort into another area that is really important to you, and that actually allowing you to flourish, right? So when I continuously did that, I spent more and more time in that environment. I built up a lot of great skill sets, and I also was able to service my church and community, which I really held as a high value of mine. And once you start prioritizing, you start to have a little bit more bandwidth, and I started to spend it on developing other high value skill sets. When I started to get involved with content creation, that took a lot of my time, and obviously that's completely changed my life. But that was a decision that I had to make in the first year of college. So that's something that I prioritized and ensure that I did every single day. Being able to prioritize is a huge component of not just your academic life, but if you want to have success in other domains of your life, you must apply it in those as well. Step number 3 is execute. You've done the legwork. You've created a calendar for yourself that will actually be suitable, that will hopefully be enjoyable, along with being productive. Now that that's been done, it's your ability to apply yourself. And people don't realize that the techniques that you utilize in your working bouts matter, because that's how you save a lot of time. That's how you become extremely efficient. And that's where the learning system is going to apply, which is a bunch of evidence-based techniques that I've designed in a system to easily be able to get the most out of your time, right? So it's what you do before class, during class, immediately after class, and for your revision. I've spoken about this a whole lot, but why do we do that? Why do we go ahead and utilize all these techniques across the board? It's so that you're not spending a whole lot of time and you can still excel at the highest level. And I've shown that, right? I've shown that in biomedical engineering while doing both my bachelor's and master's. I've been able to be extremely efficient with it because there's a system involved of evidence-based techniques that I really encourage you to apply as well. So when you're executing, think about execution with efficiency, and that can be done with the learning system in the academic sphere. And I also want to mention that here is a really important time for you to start embedding techniques that will further prevent procrastination, right? So the first 2 steps are going to be really important, the planning and the prioritizing. But here, when you're executing as well, embed the 5-minute rule, right? Apply the 3-2-1 method. Go ahead and utilize any version of the Pomodoro technique in terms of the amount of time. Maybe you're not 25-minute work sessions, but you're a 45-minute work session person, but split it up like that, so you can ensure that you're not procrastinating. We know that procrastination happens not because the task is extremely overwhelming in and of itself, but because there's an underlying emotion tied to that task. And so maybe you're a perfectionist and you have started a piece of work, but you're afraid of messing it up, so you won't return back to it. Maybe it's a feeling of guilt. You lead a team, but you've been procrastinating on a piece of work, and now you don't want to return back to it. There are these feelings that are associated with it. It can be fear, it can be a lot of different emotions, but that ultimately stops us and makes it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And what's the best remedy for it? You make the initial task a lot less daunting. So those techniques that I just mentioned will help you in doing that. I know I've spoken about that exhaustively in the past before, but it's because it's extremely beneficial for this stage 3 in execution, allowing you to get the work that you need to get done when you need to do it, and also utilizing the techniques in the learning system to ensure that the work that you're doing is efficient as well. Step number 4, review. And I've been saying this for quite a long time, but time blocking is a skill. Being able to create effective schedules for yourselves where it's not just work, but it allows you to have time for rest and play and spontaneous activity, allows you to be creative. Like those things that you want to embed in a really good calendar takes time. And it's your ability to think like an engineer and reflect on the things that have worked really well and that haven't worked well, and then tailoring it towards your strength and continuously refining it over time. And actually a really big tip that I would provide for you is get in the habit. I know I just recently got an Apple Watch and this has been phenomenal in helping me do this, but even your phone or even your computer, or you can even bring a separate timer for this, but I want you to start timing your tasks, especially the ones that occur frequently. And why that's the case is because a lot of times we think a task takes a certain amount of time only to realize that it actually takes more than that, right? So for example, you might say, you know what, I'm going to allot 40 minutes to go work out, right? It's probably going to be more than 40 minutes because you require yourself to change into a new outfit. You have to get your belongings, and then you have to commute to the gym, and then you have to do your training session, and you have to come out of it and come back home. And so that might take you a total of an hour. And that's 20 minutes right there that will likely negatively impact the remainder of your schedule. Once you get a better awareness by timing your tasks, just getting the natural habit of doing that, the better you will be at allocating the appropriate time blocks per task. And that really does make an incredibly large difference. This way you don't necessarily feel extremely rushed while still being mindful of Parkinson's law, ensuring that we're not just wasting our time. With that being said, that was a very high level overview of the system that I utilize. Again, in summary, plan, prioritize, execute, and review. If you can apply those steps in the academic sphere, in your working sphere, in your entrepreneurial sphere, it will be extremely beneficial and ensure that you are one step closer to maximizing your potential. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to respond to it. Give this video a thumbs up, and of course, subscribe. Until next time, take care of yourselves. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you all at the top.